issue that you felt could have turned out better for the fishery today?
I would certainly say one for sure would be the whole saga of Fishery Products International. From the beginning, when it was, was formed out of the ashes really of the former deep sea companies that were virtually bankrupt, and really, which was a function of too much debt, and the toxic mix of debt and fish really brought them to their knees. And so FCI was formed and really became a flagship company for the province. But then, to be blunt, the carpetbaggers moved in, and it didn't survive, and I think that was a loss to the province. I think the whole marketing focus that they provided was a real loss. I was present when then Premier Williams offered to finance taking over the marketing arm, provided that the Newfoundland industry would take the ball and run with it, and it was disappointing, to say the least, that there was no interest. The only person in the room, I believe, was aboard that idea was me, and it fell by the wayside. So anyway, that would have been, and so we ended up with things like the closure of Marystown, closure of Port Union, and general demise in the plant sector. That's certainly highly regrettable. I'm not quite sure what we could have done any different to change that, because once they got in front of a shareholders meeting and people got sold on a plan that was supposed to produce a lot of increased share value that quite frankly never materialized.
I believe you and Richard Cashin are the only two presidents in the history of the FFAW?
That's correct, yeah.
I guess, what is it about the union where you have such long tenured presidents?
Well, I guess what it reflects is that when we, in the case of both of us, when we started, we meant business, and we weren't in it just as it wasn't like a frolic. Or now, particularly in Richard's case, when he started, all the cognoscenti around St. John's, the chattering townies were of the view that he was only in this for some nefarious means to further some obscure political agenda, and he wouldn't. He get bored with this pretty quick. Well, that was 1971, and he stepped down in 1993. So that's not that's not etched in. And in fact, he was serious about it and provided great leadership. We'd never gotten off the ground without someone with the kind of dynamism that Richard had. In my case, when I took over, I meant business too, and I said, if I'm going to. I remember to this day the call when he told me he was stepping down, and I had to say, well, am I going to step up? And came to the conclusion, yes, I was. If people had had me, I'd go for it. So I guess, yeah, but the org is a serious organization. We're not just around for a little while to see what's happening. We're here for the long haul. That's why we bought our own building, which our board, I think one of the best decisions this board has made in my time was to invest in our own building, which is a kind of symbolic that we're part of the furniture around here, and we ain't going anywhere. We're sticking around, and we're going to make ourselves. We'll keep changing. We'll keep innovating, but we'll always be very relevant to the social and economic and political life of this province.
As you hand over the torch, what do you think some of the big challenges now your successor faces?
Oh, there's some big ones. I think probably the biggest area of challenge is around the whole environmental change that's taking place in the marine environment. I mean, we've seen shrimp quotas shrink considerably, compounded by that ill-advised, unfair, and unreasonable application DFO is putting on the so-called LIFO policy, and certainly the projections of the scientists are that shrimp and crab stocks will decline over the next number of years, and meanwhile we're seeing a very strong resurgence of groundfish. So that's really challenging on a couple of fronts. First of all, crab and shrimp paid a lot of bills around this province for a long time, and here's certainly the projections are that we'll have less of that, and that's already well underway in shrimp. Secondly, we've got to reinvent ourselves in the cod business, and we've been essentially out of the cod market for 22 years, and now all of a sudden you don't suddenly say wait, and one of the challenges, will they leave quotas at virtually zero and then wait 10 or 15 years and someday say, hey, we got great news, we can have a 100,000 ton quota next year, and there's nobody left to fish it, and there's nobody left to process it. So getting a sensible approach to rebuilding the cod industry at the same time we rebuild the cod stocks is going to be a challenge, and really dealing with the fallout from from any declines that eventually we eventually see in some of our most valuable fisheries. So those are big challenges, and doing that in a way, our goal is to try and do that in a way that allows for those who remain in the fishery to make decent incomes and have stable fishing communities and fishing enterprises.
So what are you gonna do now, go on the golf course,